Welcome to Nerds in the Dark, NerdTable Discussion. At the top right, I'm Mikie. Top left,
Malika.
And at the bottom,
Darnel.
All right, and we are Nerds in the Dark, and today we're here to discuss an interesting topic. We're going to discuss a very popular author and a very popular franchise. That's right, we're talking about J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter, and the ethical dilemma we face while consuming media that we might genuinely enjoy while supporting someone with a huge platform that's delivering a message we're opposed to. We're discussing this for a few reasons. Reason number one is that Harry Potter fandom is very much alive and kicking. 2, there's a brand new Harry Potter game that was just announced for PS5. And 3, JK announced a brand new book revolving around a cishet man who poses as a woman to lure people to their deaths. Given her recent history, this is very clearly a transphobic hit piece. Now, specifically when we talk about death of the author in this instance, we're talking about separating the art from the artist when the very wealthy, very powerful, still alive author outs themselves as a bigot. It's possible that you're a person that doesn't care about this and 100% genuinely believe that you can separate art from the artist. If that's true, this podcast is not for you. We're really discussing, people who are on the fence. And how we kind of feel about that. And there is a popular YouTuber and author that I love. Her name is Lindsay Ellis, and she said that the problem with bringing death of the author into the discussion is that it's trying to find an academic solution to an ethical and emotional problem. If you grew up on Harry Potter and are extremely emotionally attached to it, you may find yourself experiencing very confused emotions regarding JK's heel turn as of late. Being someone that purportedly championed gay representation, it might be hard to reconcile the idea that she ignores the T in LGBT. Since we talk a lot about intersectionality, especially on this channel, that's something that's obviously problematic. So I wanted to bring it to the group to discuss. So let's open that up a little bit. And how do you guys feel about Harry Potter and JK?
I'm gonna let Mikie go.
Well, obviously it's something I grew up on. It's something that I very much love. I've read all the books. I've seen all the movies. My sister and I, we have movie nights where we'll watch all of them. It's a big part of our lives, and it was a big part of my life growing up. So to see all of this going on with JK, it's very disheartening. It sucks, basically, because I grew up thinking that everyone matters, everyone's included, this is a story that is talking about different people from different places all learning to accept themselves. But then there's this big part of my life as a member of the LGBT community that she just completely disregards, and that hurts, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can feel that. Darnel?
So me, I pretty much didn't know Harry Potter existed until the first movie came out, and they're enjoyable things but more so things I just watched while playing in the background while I cleaned my house, which hasn't happened as you can tell. But seeing her I had new people who grew up on it, and they're like, oh yeah, she's fucking amazing. And I was but seeing her dive down the weird hole that she went down through via Twitter, via live, it's are you guys saying the same thing I'm saying? Because she's getting real weird with it. And so it's easy for me to disconnect from it because it's it wasn't super important to me. And it was just the movies are just kind of meh, there was other things I could read or watch. It's just it's on, I'm not gonna say no, but I don't need to see this.
Yeah. Now, personally for me, so I wasn't a big fan of the books. So they weren't very powerful for me or formative. However, they do represent an important part of my life, because as the movies came out, I saw the movies not because there were things that I wanted to see, but because there were things that Malika and Eliza wanted to see. So when it comes to going to see those movies, who was the person going with them? Who was the person who was like, all right, well, you guys want to go see it, let's go, right? And like, that stuff, it was part of Malika's formative years, which makes it an important thing to me, because I watched those movies with her, and while I don't feel as strongly about it, it's something that, oh, hey, thanks for the follow, Young at Heart 2, or Young at Heart 21. So it's something that I definitely feel is important to look at, because while I've never been a big fan myself, I understand the impact that it's had on the formative years for people's lives. I mean, for a lot of people, liking Harry Potter is a personality. You talk to people, and I mean, even these days, like we're millennials, and how many times have you been on Tinder, and they're yeah, their first line is like, yo, this is my house, like this is this is my Hogwarts house. So it's obviously something that's very important to people. Right? So when that author starts to alienate people and cause genuine harm, because the stuff that she's tweeting, the stuff that she's writing, is genuinely harmful to the trans community, how do you end up feeling about that?
Like I said earlier, it hurts. It definitely, it hurts. And not only do I feel bad for myself, but I feel bad for everyone else who is just as hurt by this, because it has done some serious damage. I know people who are transgendered that looked up to these books, looked up to this writer, and then for her to say that they're not valid, that they're not real, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because there is a whole new generation that are reading these books, that are watching these movies, that are seeing her on social media or in real life or in interviews saying these things. I mean, Ethan, our nephew, he's big on this. He's learning his love and appreciation for Harry Potter. He's reading the books, he's watching the movies. His generation is going to grow up in the generation where JK is saying these hurtful things. And this is someone that they're looking up to that are saying these things, so they don't know whether to think if it's appropriate or not, or if what they're saying is true or not.
Right.
So her using her platform in such a negative way is dangerous.
100% agree with that. Now, pivot a little bit here. Did you guys see the trailer for the Harry Potter game?
I have not.
Okay. So it looks like a genuinely interesting game. Hundreds of devs had to have worked on this game. It looks amazing. The idea is that it takes place in the Hogwarts, like, Harry Potter universe, while not being a Harry Potter story. The design of it is around being a wizard at the school and forging your own destiny. Herculean Heart says, yeah, it looks good. It genuinely looks like an interesting game. And it's not based on her writing, it's based on the universe she created. So some people would argue that she only created the universe, and this is just an expansion made by hundreds of other people. So as a justification, the argument is that, like, hey, this doesn't actually support JK, this supports everyone else involved. So one, I guess the question to you guys is, one, do you agree with that? And two, how do you feel about that, even if you know that she'll still get royalties out of it?
Well, there you go.
a part of me doesn't want to support it because I know that she's going to get royalties from this. I know she's going to get money somehow, that she's going to profit off of the world that she's created. But another part of me is like, damn, I really do love the Harry Potter world. Like, that's my universe. You know me. I'm a huge nerd.
Yeah.
I've played all the games. I've had all the mobile games. So I'm sitting here like, oh, this is something fun and new for me to play. But at the same time, I'm like, where are my morals? Where do they lie? Do I want to continue to support such a person profiting off of young minds that are susceptible to everything she's saying?
So Young at Heart 21 says she still gets the money. Herculean Heart says, being a fan of Harry Potter, it's moving in a fandom/work in a nuanced way to be able to see the parts that you love and know that the creator is someone who doesn't align with you or your values. A clarification to Young at Heart 21, a lot of people are downplaying this now by saying that they're downplaying Rowling's involvement by saying that she's not directly involved with the game, and saying that she's, in the same way that, like, Wizards United puts out they put out an FAQ after her, big stuff in June, July, where she was tweeting out a bunch of wild stuff that said that she's not involved with the game, but it is based on her work. So that is the extent of her involvement. However, she did not already get the money. It's a clarification for a lot of people. People are right now trying to downplay and revise the history. A couple years back, there were a lot of articles out about J.K. Rowling and telling the history of her deals with Warner Brothers. Now, Warner Brothers owns the merchandising rights to produce anything for Harry Potter, right? And what this means for everybody to understand is that she sold the merchandising rights to Warner Brothers for a very low upfront. She got about $500K for it. And a lot of people at the time, because they knew it was going to be a big movie and a big series, were like, what, you're crazy. This was a multi-million-dollar deal. However, what she actually did was do a low upfront to maintain royalty rights for anything Harry Potter related moving forward. So every transaction in Wizards United, there's a cut that goes to her. There's royalties that goes to her. Everything, every sale of the game goes to her. Right? There's some kind of cut that she gets. That's how she became, like, damn near a billionaire if she's not already over a billion. She was worth over $1 billion at one point, then she dropped lower, and now it's a little less clear where she's at. But Young and Her says the people who develop the games don't get royalties if the game does well with AAA games. That depends on who makes it and what their contractual deal is. There are bonuses involved and stuff like that. Like, they don't get, like, necessarily like royalties, but yeah, the deal that Warner Brothers made with J.K. Rowling does ensure her millions. A lot of articles came out, like, saying how brilliant she was to actually do that deal, because when she first made it, people thought she was crazy, and then they found out that she became, like, almost a billionaire off the royalties alone because of all the merch. Now, that being said, they're downplaying it now because they don't want people to think that she's getting as much money, but she's still going to be getting money. So that's something that's important to note, is that she's still going to get some money from this. So if the game, the better the game does, the more she's going to get. So putting us back on topic a little bit here. So we saw the game. The game looks good. It looks like something that would definitely be interesting. You don't necessarily think you'll support it, Malika. Darnel, do you think you will support it?
I will not, because, like, she's openly already said that she's, like, transphobic. So, like, one, it's like not like doesn't look like my type of thing to do. But also, like, even if it was my type of game, I would like, nope, because you already said you're, like, transphobic, and, like, the mere possibility of trying to get money, like, I'm going to avoid. giving you it if I can. Like,
Yeah. You know, it's interesting for me because I'm not like as big into Harry Potter, but it looks like the type of game that I would absolutely enjoy. And you know, coming from Warner Brothers, that means that it's hit or miss as to whether or not it can actually be good. Licensed games from Warner Brothers, look at Arkham. Arkham series came out to be really well, you
yeah,
know, and so an RPG style game with Hogwarts with wizards could be a cool game.
Mm-hmm.
Young at Heart 21 says buy it secondhand or on sale. Yeah, that's a possibility. So like, I mean, if you buy it, if you buy it secondhand, there's a little less guilt with that. You know what I mean? Because like, it doesn't necessarily that money, someone else gave that money to JK already, and now that money is going to someone else. When you buy it, so like that's a way that you could arguably be ethically cleaner. So one thing I'd like to discuss with you guys, because some people do compartmentalize how they feel about the author. Do you think that because A, she's alive, and B, we don't live in a vacuum, is death of the author really a possibility? Like, you can say like, oh, we separate the art from the artist, but like, we live in a world with Twitter where she's going to keep saying her stuff and people will still talk about it. So
Mm-hmm.
can you truly be uninfluenced by the author or any other external bias?
I don't think so.
no, because like you're actively seeing it in real time. Because everybody else who had problematic behavior and like people after the fact are like, hey, you know what? Like this person was a piece of crap. And it's like, yeah, you can like just avoid them. And it's like, okay, cool. I just won't watch your movies or read your books or whatever, and just like avoid the content. But like you've already like consumed it. It's whatever. Like now I can actively like avoid anything she does going to new.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I can actively like see like, hey, like she's going all these things. I can just like, I don't need to have anything that involve her. And this, and like, my thing is like with like, I've always like remember like teachers kind of talking about like poor behavior of like authors in the past.
Sure.
And like teachers like can't like say like, well, it was in the past, like that's just the time it was. It's like, well, they can't, like there's like that argument goes out the window. It's like the time of inclusivity, and it's like, and here she is going completely left field with it.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that. Herculean Heart asks, at what point does the work become greater than the creator? Not separating it from them, but know that there are inherent biases in the work and critique those while also acknowledging those parts that speak to you because they are a reflection of parts of you.
I have an opinion on it, but I'm not sure I should bring it up right now.
Okay. That's something, that's something to say. So, like, Herculean Heart adds, no creator is not problematic.
Sure.
I agree with that. I think that, so I don't think that we're saying in any way that it needs to be, black and white, one side or the other, that you have to immediately reject all works if they're not, if they're not problematic. Like, people still read, H.P. Lovecraft. And he was extremely problematic. People still read Ender's Game, and he continues to be extremely problematic. Orson Scott Card, not Ender's Game. Ender's Game is the book. He continues to be extremely problematic. So there has to be, I think there has to be a question that we ask ourselves, like at what point, like what types of problematic are acceptable? Because you can say like, oh man, like this guy's got major drinking problems and his family fell apart, and like, oh, that's awful. Like, I don't know if we should support his drinking habit. That's very different from saying like, oh, H.P. Lovecraft really hated black people, versus J.K. Rowling is actively funding, or Orson Scott Card are actively funding hurtful organizations today now. There's a difference in some of those things, and you can say like, oh man, I can't, I can say in good conscience that I do not recommend, Ender's Game to people anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's different to like look at a book and you can say that like, hey man, like this stuff that was created, X years ago, and the author's dead and whatever, because like people love Lord of the Rings. Tolkien's been dead for years, and they created this series after the fact. It's like your experience with that was completely unique from what the author actually did. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, since you brought it up, like H.P. Lovecraft, he has like there's that new show called Lovecraft Country,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's primarily focusing on like a black man and a black woman, and like you can separate that because they just took the elements of it, but there's like no real connection to the author because like the author is in no way, shape, or form connected to it. So
right.
I figure like the only thing with like JK would be like some weird offshoot fan fiction, like where you know clearly that the fan fiction is referencing it.
Yeah.
But like it's definitely not her.
Or
and
I
so
think,
like
I not to jump on you, but I think that like if we were like 50 years in the future and JK's dead and she's not earning money off this anymore, and somebody created a new game that says, hey, this is in the universe, it doesn't deal with her stories, but we like the idea of like a wizarding world and a university where you could learn spells and stuff, so we made a game. Like, yeah, that's different. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She's not directly funding hate anymore. Herculean Heart says, like, I love Buffy, but I know Whedon is sexist, and there are racist and sexist elements in Buffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a part of it. And then it comes down to, your interest in Buffy. How much of that goes back to supporting Whedon now? Like, what are his royalties? What does he make? And it's like, are you purchasing new things? Are you just rewatching the old show that you love? And while there are definitely racist and sexist elements, but there's a lot of problematic stuff. I mean, first of all, like, Angel's like a couple hundred years old, and he's like preying on a 16-year-old girl. That's very problematic in and of itself.
Yeah.
But let's see. Gamer 1984 dude says, hi, we can't separate art from artists because we are canceling everything. This is why we can't have nice things. We can separate art from the artist when we stop canceling stuff. I think that specifically because we do live in a cancel culture world, we shouldn't be separating art from the artist. I think that because the real world has consequences,
Mm-hmm.
like that's where you have issues, because to draw like a bit of a parallel here, we know that we live in a problematic world with R. Kelly, right?
Right.
And R. Kelly, he's not just problematic, he's an actual predator. And so even though there are some absolute bangers in his library, I have not since bumped another R. Kelly song.
Same.
So can you separate the art from the artist? I mean, I don't know if you should, knowing that he can get money from it, which he'll then use to fund his legal case, to try to get away from the actual problems. Like, I don't think so. Young at Heart says, biphobic element to Willow was bi and I will die in this hill. Herculean Heart says, I'm buying the new comics. Okay. I'm not sure. Is he writing the comics?
I don't believe he's writing the new comics, but I'd have to check.
Gamer 1984 dude says there's no growth if we cancel everything. Our next gen is screwed. Gen Z is doomed. You just stop supporting what you're uncomfortable with. I don't think so. Here's the thing. It's not about growth.
What you're uncomfortable with. It's about accountability.
Right, and we've talked about cancel culture before.
Yeah.
Well, that's ahistorical because like we have as a history have like legit like stopped supporting things that we deem problematic.
Right.
So like you can't just rewrite history because you want to blame the younger generation. Like there is a history of people like not being patriotic enough in the fucking past, and we straight up like, hey, you can't do that. Or any person who like supported a fucking black woman was like canceled. Like we used to like dump the pool water out if a black person got in it, and like people hated Marilyn Monroe for like liking black people. So you kind of can't say like, oh, this is just a new thing. It's existed.
Yeah. I mean, and like boycotts have existed for a very long time. I mean, literally, the United States was born from trying to cancel Britain.
Right.
Like that's.
And if we don't hold artists accountable for what they're doing, what does that say for future generations?
Yeah.
Because it's not simply just cancel culture. It's no, we're trying to get this person to own up to what they're doing, accept accountability, and try to work to be better. If we don't hold JK accountable for her words and actions, what is that saying to younger generations who see her and see how she acts and reads how she acts and just hears all of this? We need to be the example for the next generation.
Yeah.
It's like
Herculean Heart says, I think we should not idolize creators, which is something we've done with JKR. I agree with that. She's got something like 14 million followers. Like there's a lot of influence that she has with that. And I think it goes way beyond canceling. It goes way beyond like holding people accountable. I think if we look at, what people say and the problematic nature of that, right? And it's not about like it's not about oh, she has an opinion, because this isn't an agree to disagree thing. We can agree to disagree about like pizza toppings. We can't agree to disagree about like human rights.
Yeah,
exactly. You knew exactly where I was going. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Like you go with your you talk with your money. So we've always had that as Americans. We pretty much have always talked with our money.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And so it's like, I'm just going to talk with my money. Like, hey, you want me to support your stuff, then you should like be mindful of what comes out your mouth. Because if you make some sideways comments, I don't have to give you my money. So like, guess what? Like, until you give a legitimate apology about it, because it's like we're not comparing like the average Joes and like low levels like we were like with like our other talk. We're talking about people who have like a major platform and are like iconic essentially. And like icons don't get that whole like, well, why are you mad at me? I just talked. Like, no, you have to like be mindful of what you say when you're like 14 million people are following you.
I agree with that. That
like, it's serious when a school is like, hey, you know what, we don't want to name anything after you anymore. Like, you've said some serious shit, so we're gonna just back up. Like, that's when you know that it's bad.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, there was a long comment from Young at Heart 21. Let's see here. I hated listening to R. Kelly with my mom on her CDs because I knew what he did well before she did, and she refused to believe me that he did those things until she saw the special. Yes, cancel culture is bad, and canceling over every little thing is bad. No one is saying that. J.K. Rowling is so very different. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Jeremy says, exactly, I could care less about Harry Potter. Like, move on, go somewhere else. There's still some women out there who love Harry Potter, don't care what she's doing. This ain't it. Don't cancel everything. Let people go and learn from them. Well, that's a whole like other thing. Like you're talking about something that's very completely separate. We're specifically talking about her. We're going to open it up to other topics for sure, but we're specifically talking about something that's very, problematic in this behavior.
Because it's
go ahead.
Yeah, because it's like he's saying like let them learn from her mistakes. The thing is, people have actively said, "Hey, yo, this is problematic," and explained why this is problematic, and her response was, "Shut up," essentially. And then like she has followed that "shut up" with making a even more problematic, like writing a whole new book that is problematic. So it's no longer just a problematic viewpoint. She's creating content from a bigoted viewpoint. So she's not just like, hey, I have a messed up view, I have a bad viewpoint or a bad opinion about this subject, but I created something good. It's now I've had a bigoted viewpoint and I'm creating bigoted content that I want people to give me money for.
Yeah.
Right. She's actively funding things that support her backwards views.
Right.
And even going back to the R. Kelly thing, I'm still to this day having conversation with people about why it's not okay to listen and support him. Like at work, I had a conversation where I was like, no, you can't sit here and bop out to this song or support him because of what he did. And the response was, well, his music didn't do anything. No, but his music is about the things that he's done. Like, that's the line you've got to draw. You can't keep supporting someone who keeps doing awful things.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. Herculean Heart says there's also the issue of her new book being about men impersonating women to attack them. Her work outside of Harry Potter novels are overt in her hate and views. I agree. That's the whole reason that we're talking about this, Herculean Heart. Because she put both in the same time that she put out the news of the book, there's also the news of the new game. So now we have two things. There's we know that she's moving forward with her hatred, and also the new game's coming out. So we have to talk about, can we ethically do this? Herculean Heart says when she is actively creating things that are hateful, we need to also put pressure on the publisher who's giving her work legitimacy and a platform. I think that's also true, and I think that's the only I think that by us actively saying no and not consuming products, it makes it so that she's too toxic to touch, because they're going to keep publishing her regardless.
Yeah.
As long as she can make money, like they're going to publish her. And that brings us to the next question that I had. So if Rowling's power comes from our consumption of her media, how do we feel knowing that by continuing to consume that, it means that we're directly empowering someone who is actively fueling hate? And I think we all agree on this, but let's go through it.
You, Miko.
You can start. I've been starting, so.
Okay.
I'm trying to let the women speak first, but okay. I feel like sideways, since I'm like, I don't really like know anything about the books. I just know only movies, and I've casually seen gameplay in like random threads. But it's like, yeah, like me consuming that shit, I kind of like feel weird because like I know like when she first started being problematic, I still went like on dates and like saw like the movies. It was just like when she went full blown, I'm like, I'm definitely not seeing these anymore. It's just like, yeah, it was a weird thing. Like, so like at first it was weird, and now it's just full blown. Like I can't even like actively like pretend that it's just like, that's on the fence thing. That's full blown over the top. Like that's my thing, is like, yeah, like I can't even like pretend to like enjoy them, because I didn't enjoy the original Harry Potter movies. I think they're just kind of mad to me. But the new ones with the
Fantastic Beasts?
like, yeah, the Fantastic Beasts.
Sure.
I thought those were really good, and like now I'm kind of like, I definitely can't, like, I'm not even gonna attempt to go watch those, because like those actually seem pretty solid.
I definitely agree with that. I think that like, historically we come from a people that have voted with their wallets a lot. And I think that we, like as people of color, we have an ethical responsibility to uphold those traditions of voting with our wallets. So I think that it becomes really hard to try to justify those things. We do have some big comments here. Let's see. Young at Heart 21. Her pseudonym is a famous man who was deeply homophobic and was the man who started conversion therapy, and she had to have known this because she was hella prominent, or because he was hella prominent in her younger years. He only died in 1999. I do know about that. I think it was like
Not.
this name that she published a book under a pseudonym, right? So first of all, like, we're not even going to touch that, like, a person who is big on gender equality and anti-trans published a book under a man's name, but specifically, coincidentally, the name was the same name of a guy who was known for conversion therapy, for being a proponent of conversion therapy.
Okay.
So that was a
That
whole
shed
thing.
some light.
Gamer 1984 dude says, funding someone who makes a book about a transphobic vampire is pretty much a signal to go like something else. I also don't appreciate how there are women out there who are, I'm excited. A certain streamer is excited for the game, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not coming into your streams when you stream the game.
It's not just women, though. I just want to point that out.
Yeah,
there
it's not just women. There's a lot of people that are excited. I think that if you don't want to support the game, I think that it is absolutely fine to not support the game. I think that it's also not something I'm going to completely blame someone for if they do want to enjoy the game. If you're able to compartmentalize this, like that's something that's absolutely fine. And I'm not going to necessarily like judge you heavily for it. I will say that you're not the biggest ally, but it's not something that I'm going to say
we can't be friends over.
Yeah, exactly. And if you can't, if you don't like a streamer that's streaming that game, or you don't like them streaming that game, like, have their views drop. Like, just don't watch during that time. If they see that their views drop because nobody wants to do it, they'll stop doing it. It's the same thing as the publishers, right? If they know that doing that content is going to be bad for them, they will stop doing that content. Herculean Heart says, the cast of the Harry Potter movies are actively making statements to support trans lives and rights, which is interesting because the Harry Potter universe becomes greater than just JK. I think that's something that is also a point. Like, the fact that everyone else involved has made a statement is actually something that shows, like, hey, this is just her going down this rabbit hole. But it's one of those things where you do have to look at it because she's the only one, like she's the only one that became a billionaire off this. So it is something to pay attention to, like, not just whether or not like Daniel Radcliffe, saying, hey, listen, not only do I disagree with you, not only am I going to publish an open letter to you through the Trevor Project, I'm also going to give more money to it. I think that's great. But she's the billionaire of the franchise. So I think it's important to know that whether or not these people outgrow her, she's still growing actively because of it. I'm not saying don't buy Harry Potter, right? What I am saying is that if you feel very strongly about trans rights, and if you feel very strongly about trans rights and you're asking the question, should I divorce myself from Harry Potter? The question is, if you feel strongly enough about it, you kind of have to. Right? If you feel strongly about trans rights, you kind of have to. Because, it's very, this is my opinion, but I think it's very wishy-washy to try to compartmentalize your feelings and then, find yourself morally justified. You can't still be an ally to trans rights if you're just like, yeah, no, but I'm going to continue giving her money, though.
Yeah.
To me, it's more than just a mistake. Like, JK didn't make a mistake. She's continuing on and doing something hurtful, even though she knows it's hurtful. A mistake is something that, like, oh, I made a joke at an inappropriate time, but immediately apologized for it, and I understood what was wrong. That's a mistake. What she's doing is perpetually doing the same thing over and over again. She's giving money to organizations that continue on with these hurtful, hateful things. Like, she's not just like, oh, I made a comment. Sorry, it was inappropriate. No, she's like, I'm going to think what I'm going to think. I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and I don't care what you guys think. Because in the end, she's the one who's still getting the money. Yeah. She's the one who's still going to keep thinking what she's thinking, saying what she's saying. It's not a mistake when you keep doing the same thing over and over again.
So, and to clarify, like, a mistake would be like when she accidentally tweeted out like part of a TERF article while she was talking about, while she was retweeting a picture that a kid drew of a monster from Harry Potter universe. That was a mistake. She accidentally pasted that shit in there.
People called her out. She's like, oh, my bad.
Right. That's a mistake. Now, when she actively gives money to those organizations, or she puts out articles, or she writes a goddamn book that's a hit piece, that's not a mistake.
Right.
Let's see. Herculean Heart says, also the issue with JKR isn't just that they are hurtful, but also that she's in a position of power and influence. Exactly. And she makes money from it actively and uses that money to support her anti-trans organizations and movements. Herculean Heart, you and me are on the exact same page. I feel it. We should be friends. Okay? Like, cause we're right here. We're right here. Jeremy says, I have a cosplay friend who thinks JKR is trash, but she still loves Harry Potter. I mean, and that's something that's fine. So one thing that we discussed when we started this conversation is that there's a lot of people for whom they feel very conflicted right now because they know that Harry Potter was extremely influential on them. Like Malika, at the very beginning of this conversation, expressed how it was very, very important to her formative years, and she has a very strong connection to Harry Potter. So she's very confused. It's very confused about how to feel about this because we can still like what we like, but have the problem of the author being problematic, and we're trying. Those feelings are fighting each other in our head right now, and it's like, how do we move forward? Because we've had these problems before. It's not the only time that we've had to face this issue. Like R. Kelly was, an older example, but look at
Chris Brown.
Chris Brown. There's a lot of people who are still on the fence about Chris Brown.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Tekashi 6ix9ine. Tekashi 6ix9ine actually was confirmed to do the things that he was accused of, which is very, very problematic. And people still listen to him. And those people, I'm not going to sit there and say that you're a terrible person for liking art. The dude produces music, and the musics are kind of bangers. But like, that's where you have a problem of this. Like, you also can't say like, oh hey, like I hate all. You can't say that you hate all Chesters and then bang out Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you can't. So it's one of those things where you have to look at like
you have
what
to draw
you do.
a line somewhere,
right? And so again, there's also issues that come about in our daily lives. Like, how can we as a society say that we can make any ethical purchase, any ethical consumption, when there's like huge problems with most of the corporations that are out there? Amazon makes money off of exploiting labor, right?
And has routinely tried to destroy unions.
Right. So there are different things to that, right? Like, we live in a capitalist world, and we know that capitalism is bad and capitalism has its issues, right? Mm-hmm. We can also say as people that we can have an ethical disconnect because we still need the products. When it comes to products when it comes to media that we enjoy, those aren't products that we need. Like, if I found out that the only way to make a PS4 was killing babies, I'd be like, whoa, hold on, maybe I don't need a PS5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, maybe I don't need it because they're killing babies. Young at Heart 21 says, I continue to listen to my Chris Brown CD as he already got the money, but I never bought another one of his CDs, nor do I play his tracks on Spotify. Herculean Heart says, isn't ethics and philosophy everything that The Good Place was about? A whole TV show exploring these arguments and ideas. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, The Good Place also was a very great show.
Right.
Yeah. Like, there's like a bunch of actors who have said problematic things over the years.
Right.
And it's like, I actively don't go see their movies, any of the new movies, but I'm not going to just like throw out the discs from the old movies that I bought before they came out as problematic. So like, I'm still going to like, it's like, okay, I have the movie, I'm going to watch it, but like at the same time, I'm not going to like give them any new money because like I've already gave them the shit. So it makes no sense for me to destroy something I already own. Like, that's just a weird thing to me to do.
Yeah.
But
and it does become a thing like you know, if you own the stuff already, you know, it's different. Like earlier when Buffy was brought up, you know, if you own all of the Buffy DVDs, you know, and you want to watch that, you know, that's fine. And like, Netflix doesn't pay by stream. You know what I mean? Netflix signs a deal. They've got that on there. They already made that money. You know, technically, if you want to stream Buffy, you can do that, and it's not something that's necessarily going to make money in the same way that, you know, an artist streaming on Spotify would. So, you know, there's ways to consume things that are ethically, you know, not the best, without feeling the same ethical dilemma of like, if I pay, you know, if I do this, it's going to directly fund something else, you know, that I don't agree with. Jeremy says Ray Fisher is raising hell at WB. Jason Momoa, active WB contract superhero, joined his cause. Well, he's not raising hell. He's bringing to light problematic issues. You know,
I don't know who Ray Fisher is.
Cyborg from the Justice League movie.
Okay.
So he has spoken at length about issues at Warner Brothers and issues that he faced with Joss Whedon and other executives, and his treatment. And you know, he basically brought to light a few issues that they're currently investigating, and has been pointing out some of the things that have been happening as specific combat to the news. Like, he's been pointing out how, you know, even though he spoke at length about these things before, every time some other bit of news comes out, it's drowned by positive news from Warner Brothers.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
So like, for example, did you guys hear the news that Ben Affleck was going to join the Flash movie? That he was going to appear in the Flash movie?
Yes, I saw that.
You heard that news. On that same day, it was announced that Warner Brothers was opening an investigation into into what Ray Fisher was claiming happened.
Okay.
Did you hear about that?
No, I did not.
So that's
and I follow multiple.
That's the kind of stuff that he's talking about, is that those things get buried. And so like he brought all that stuff to light before, and now he's like, well, they're doing an active campaign to do this, because it's also the same time that, you know, some other news came out. I don't remember what the previous news was, but at the same time that came out, they also decided to coincidentally release the news regarding Jason Momoa doing something else. I think it was like he was going to appear in like a TV show. But yeah, Warner Brothers has just been actively like avoiding talking about it. So it's like, you know, I get why he's mad, and he's just like, look, man, you guys are drowning out this stuff when it feels like this is something that's really important. That is,
And
again,
he's
that's
not the only
totally
one
off
too.
topic though.
Yeah.
Still has a little bit to do with ethics, but yeah.
So I think it's important to look at, you know, how we consume like any media, right? Because like if you care about a certain issue and your consumption of that media directly opposes that issue, you no longer, you know, you can't pretend to be morally opposed to the issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like
the Mulan movie is a prime example of that. A lot of people are very much against the movie because of where it was filmed, who had worked on it, and because of the lead actress.
Sure.
So there's people who are just like, you can't give money to this when they are essentially...
Sure. For context, let's go ahead and expand on that, because that's very much on topic. So go ahead and expand on that.
Okay. So the places that Mulan was filmed happened to coincide with camps, basically, that were very anti-Muslim. The actress is in support of the Hong Kong police. And then there's just other things. I don't know if you want to elaborate more, Mikey.
Sure. So, all right. So what's going on is that in China there is a sort of ethnic cleansing / genocide / kind of like internment camps going on. Right. They're calling them re-education camps. There's a whole lot in there that's going on with the Uyghur population in China, and it's primarily Muslim subsection of China going on in a certain province in China where it happened to be that Mulan was filmed. During that time, Disney definitely praised China, put out some good words. The actress who played Mulan also put out some good words, being positive towards the Hong Kong police. And it's because a lot of times there's a lot of money that's made in China, so they kind of kowtow to what China wants. And so this creates a problem that people, you know, this creates a problem for people who are like, hey, there's all this stuff going on. When exactly was this movie filmed? Because we'd like to know if you guys did your due diligence in your in your ethics reports, you know, in your human rights impact reports, because big corporations do have to do that. They do have to look into any ethical problems with places that they might film, and they're supposed to have a report on that. So specifically when they went out and, you know, they filmed the movie during the time where the stuff was supposedly happening, they put in the credits thank yous to the Chinese spin department that tries to put out the propaganda. And of course there's notes where the actress has been pro-China. However, on the actress there's a little bit of sway on that, because she is an actress that has family in China, so her words may be coerced words. So that's something that I do tend to be like, okay, well, maybe she feels this way, maybe she doesn't. I care more about Disney.
Yeah.
You know, as an individual, and she does have influence, she does have power, so that is something to think about and address. But because we know some of the history of China's reactions to people who provide dissenting opinions, it's understanding why she may not be providing an opinion of dissent. So it's something that you know is also related to the topic. You know, can you ethically watch Mulan knowing that the place where it was filmed and directly China is going to be either making money or getting tourism or profiting off of these issues. Disney is profiting off of this. So it's like, how do you ethically consume that? I have chosen not to purchase Mulan.
Same.
And specifically for that reason, until I either learn more, or whatever. Does that mean I'm not going to watch it? I may watch it once it's free, because at that point that's different. I'm not paying for it. I don't know if the movie did well or not, so that's something to look at, because we don't know if that's going to change how we see those things yet. I think that they're probably going to wait for the first month to be over to determine when they announce those official numbers. I know they're gonna have like some box office numbers come out in terms of like what they did overseas, but I think the U.S. numbers are going to be a little more telling into what they do. So we'll see what they do. That also relates back to a previous topic that we had on whether or not theaters are going to exist. If that model works, if that model works, we might not see theaters. Herculean Heart says, speaking about Disney and problematic actors, there's ScarJo and her support for Woody Allen, and yet I love Black Widow and I want to see the movie. Specifically, I'm not familiar with her support for Woody Allen. Are any of you guys familiar with that?
Yes.
Vaguely.
Okay.
Mika explain it, because mine's vague.
So as you know, there's been a lot of allegations towards Woody Allen about things that he's done, sexual harassment, predatory behavior, racism, things like that. There was an interview in which Scarlett Johansson said that she loved working with Woody and she would work with Woody again, whereas there's multiple other people that are just like, no, I'm never going to work with him again, and here's why. So people are very much like, how can you support him knowing that this is how he treats women, how he treats other people? Like, why would you continue to support someone like him or continue to work for someone like him?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like that's kind of problematic since I just had to remember who Woody Allen is.
Yeah, I like what I know about Woody Allen is something that I know is problematic. But I don't know, like, specifically in terms of ScarJo and Woody Allen and her support for him. I don't know anything about that. I can't speak on that topic. But I do know that when it comes to Woody Allen's history, he was a problematic dude who married his own daughter. Like that's something where it's like, it's weird. It's super weird, man. Should he not be able to make movies anymore? I don't know. But like, if there's other stuff in his history that makes him extra problematic, like, yeah, that's a problem. If he's weird in his household, and again, I don't know, if he was an abuser or what. Like, I don't know that part. You know what I mean? But Herculean Heart says he married his adopted daughter. Huge red flag. I agree. Really big red flag. So.
And I can say I love Scarlett Johansson, but I know she is in fact very problematic. There's been tons of issues surrounding her.
ScarJo who can play a tree. ScarJo.
Right.
She can play any role.
Yeah.
She can play anything.
Just all of Endgame recast with ScarJo.
That's her.
She's every role. She would nail it, ScarJo. I'm honestly waiting for the I'm waiting for the recasting of The Wiz with just ScarJo.
Oh.
Like, she could do it. Any role can be done by ScarJo. I'm gonna get hate for this. God.
Oh.
You're gonna get hate for calling her ScarJo because she hates that, and so does the fans.
So you're telling me that I'm gonna get hate for using ScarJo and not for calling her out on her bullshit? I mean, that's fine, I guess.
Look, people have very different priorities, okay?
I mean, it is what it is. You know, they're like, hey, we agree with you that, you know, it's a little whitewashy what she does, but how dare you call her ScarJo?
But back to the topic at hand. Like we can. It's just a matter of where we draw the line.
Sure.
Like I said, love Scarlett Johansson, but I also know that she's problematic. So when it comes to things that she's in, I have to determine whether or not the impact of it is in the negative. Like, I didn't watch her in Ghost in the Shell when it came out. I didn't watch her in Lucy when it came out because I understood the ramifications of those movies. But then things like Avengers, I was like, yes. Endgame, yes. Black Widow, yes. But that's also because that's another storyline that I love, that I have a connection with, that I want to see happen.
All right, so as someone with a connection to it, let's address one final question, right? Because we've already said, right, like if you truly care about trans rights, if they're really important to you, you need to let Harry Potter go. Are people ready for that?
I don't think so.
Oh no.
I don't think so. I think at this point, it has still so much of a grasp on people. I feel like Harry Potter is still so big in both my life and other people's lives that it's going to be very hard to just quit it cold turkey and get rid of everything and stop supporting it.
So what do you think? So what does it take? Where's the line? Like, it's already like extremely problematic.
No, the line is there. Like, I've drawn the line for myself. The line is there. I'm no longer supporting her. I'm not buying any of her new stuff. I'm not playing any of the new games, reading any books. Like, I've drawn the line. But I just feel like it's gonna be harder for other people. Like, the line is there. It should not be crossed. Like, this is an action that people need to know is a serious action. That the way that she is behaving, the things that she is saying are not okay. As a member of the LGBT community, I've seen that firsthand, that what she is saying is hurtful and dangerous and harmful, and I'm just done at this point. I'm completely done with her.
Well, as a member of the cishet community, I don't claim her either.
Oh, there you go.
I pass her off to the pan community.
I don't think they want her either.
FTP?
So nobody claims her.
So I mean, I think that if that was the case, right? If it stood to be the case that nobody claimed her, like she wouldn't be able to publish anymore, I think it'd be a good thing, man. I think that's what we need, is for people to truly be able to separate themselves. And I think that, again, if you can't separate yourself, I'm not saying that you don't care, and I'm not going to make you a villain if you can't separate yourself yet. Darnel, you feel differently. I'll give you a chance. What I do want to say is that I don't think it's as black and white, but I also think that your status as an ally now has a slight asterisk if you can't let it go. And you don't have to be ready to let it go now. But as long as you, like, if you can recognize that it's problematic and you're trying to figure out a way to get there, that's something. You know, if you say that you can't let it go, you know, like if somebody's on the fence and they tell me they're on the fence, that's different. But if you say like, oh, I can't let it go, I can't. I mean, we're not really an ally.
Right.
You know, I mean, but we've said this before in different. We've said before in other conversations that we've had that I think that being an ally requires more than just being tolerant. I think it involves being actively against hate. But Darnell, you had thoughts.
Like, well, I was gonna say something like that was Gamer 1984 said, which is like, it's just fiction, and like he's kind of like once again missing the point. Because I agree with everything you said, which is like, you know, like you have to actively move against things, but like fiction has swayed and controlled opinions of society. And I'm not even going like to the drastic of like racism, transphobia, or anything like from the bigotry. Just the simple fact of Bugs Bunny changing the meaning of the word Nimrod because people misconceived it as being like Nimrod is a historically like, you know, a great hunter, but Bugs Bunny used it in a cartoon against Elmer Fudd, and everybody changed it like now associates Nimrod with being an idiot.
Right.
And so it's like media can change the opinions of people or of things. So it's not just as simple of separating them. Like you can act like, you know, your media that you create changes the opinion of others and has control of situations. So like it's not as mere, I just separate them. Like no, like it's an active thing of like historically shown, and like media sways opinions with like anything from like sexual orientation, whether blacks should be accepted, whether like, you know, like Star Trek did the first interracial kiss, and like pretty sure that pissed off a bunch of people, but like you can't separate that, like separate those things.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
While we can accept that, you know, the media is important, I think that, you know, someone with gigantic platform, I think that anyone with a platform has a certain responsibility. Because I think that, like, you know, you look at us, we do not have that many followers on this channel. We have a very tiny platform, but I think that even us with our tiny platform have some sort of responsibility, you know, to use that platform appropriately. I think that it's up to us to more or less act responsibly.
Right. I feel like in this day and age, it's very important that no matter who you are, how big your following is, mind what you say, because your words have an impact, no matter how big or small. There is always something that can be construed a certain way. So it's very important to just watch what you say and be mindful of others. Because it's true, words hurt, actions hurt. So it's very important that we know that not everyone has the same life experiences. Not everyone will take something a certain way that you're saying it. Because we can say something and have our own meaning, but there'll always be people who will take it differently.
Yeah.
So we have to take it upon ourselves to have that responsibility, or that it's up to us to watch what we say.
100% agree with
and
that.
be mindful.
Now, before we go into our final thoughts on the matter, we're going to open this up to the chat, and we're going to look at any final thoughts the chat has before we go into our final thoughts on the subject.
Awesome.
So Herculean Heart says, media is highly influential. You change people's minds by changing their minds first, which is why acknowledgement of problematic things in works and creators, stopping creator worship is important.
Right.
I think that I agree with that. I think that it's very important to recognize when we start putting people on a pedestal. You know, like I think that, you know, one of my favorite creators is Kevin Smith, and I love Kevin Smith, but I do not worship him. And I think that if he did something problematic, was really terrible, I would attempt to hold him accountable.
No, I agree with that.
Herculean heart meant hearts. So you change people's minds by changing their hearts first. I agree with that.
Yeah, completely. Currently in the same boat. An actress that I like said something problematic, and it sucked. And I've been kind of disappointed in this actress lately. And this was just the tip of the iceberg where I'm just like, wow, you said it. You did the thing. So I'm going to have to take a step back from how much I like you and how much I'm willing to support you.
Yeah. I think it's mature to look at it that way. To recognize that, not everyone is great. I mean, I'll tell you a good example of that was I've been following this person on Twitter. Darnel put me on. Guy's name is Michael Harriet. Puts a lot of stuff on Twitter that's very like I don't want to say educational necessarily, but he definitely schools people.
Yeah.
And has
informative.
It's very informative tweets, and a lot of stuff that really corrects a lot of revisionist history. But recently penned an article that I think was very problematic. I think it was called the White People's Guide to Aunties. It was very
I saw that.
Very problematic article, and I think it's one of those things that recognizing that and like saying, hey, this ain't it, chief. I think that it's important to have that like instant accessibility. You know what I mean?
When I saw that, but I fully understood why a whole bunch of people did. Because that's not a thing that you should have said.
Yeah. Jeremy says, you guys are great. I had a great conversation. Remember to have a sound mind whenever you indulge in your hobbies. I mean that's the goal here, is like being mindful of what we consume. That was the essence of the conversation. So really that's what we want people to take away. Not necessarily that you have to separate yourself from Harry Potter, but understanding what is there. And so guys, what are your final thoughts on this subject?
Don't put people on a pedestal. That's all I gotta say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Accountability and mindfulness. It's up to us to be mindful of what we say and not to be afraid to hold other people accountable to their actions. Like Darnel said, don't put people on a pedestal. People make mistakes, but they also are problematic. So we shouldn't be afraid to call them out. Right. In case in point, our main argument, J.K. Rowling. Yeah. She is very anti-trans, and it hurts, and people should continue to call her out on it.
My final thoughts on the matter are that I don't think it's possible for us to truly separate art from the artist, and I think that we have a responsibility to try to ethically consume things, even though we know that some things are not. There's limitations to what we can ethically consume. If we know that money directly funds hatred, we have a responsibility to the people that we ally with. We have a responsibility to them, because I guess the end result is, imagine telling a trans friend that a game means more to you than them.
Right.
And I think if you can, if you put it in those terms and say that you're not okay with that, then maybe you shouldn't be okay buying the game. That's the final thought, really. So, thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much for being a part of the stream, joining the conversation. really appreciate all of you. We appreciate our, the new follower, Young at Heart 21. Thank you so much for joining into the conversation. And thank you for everyone else. Herculean Heart, Jeremy, thank you so much for being a part of the stream. And we'll see you next time with some good content, and more of the same. See ya.
Also, feel free to tweet at us any comments or things you want to see us discuss.
Yeah.
We're always here.
Let us know what you'd like us to discuss next. We do have some topics in mind, but we always want to hear more from you guys. So please let us know somewhere on the internet what you'd like us to talk about. But in the meantime, see you next time.
Bye, guys.